Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news, and after the second year in a row of deep underperformance by the Scuderia AlphaTauri, Red Bull have had enough. Helmut Marko confirms they're going to renovate entirely what this team is trying to do. Not just the name is going to go, could Toro Rosso potentially return? You'd imagine there's going to be some overhaul in the driver department as well, and also where they're located and how closely they're aligned to the main team. What does this mean for the future of this organisation? Very much interested to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. So here we go from Helmut Marko today. He's been talking a lot lately about a lot of things, as he always does, especially their sister team AlphaTauri. Red Bull came into the sport in, I believe, 2005. Toro Rosso, which is Red Bull in Italian, came in 2006. And since then, they were pretty good, to be fair. Vettel won a race for the right before he got brought up to the main team, and they were always reasonably competitive. And even AlphaTauri over the last couple of years haven't been so bad, but 2022, 2023 has been an absolute disaster. So this is what he says: the course is clear. Follow Red Bull Racing as far as the regulations allow. Designing your own is not the way. And this is aligned with what they've been talking about the last few days, bringing AlphaTauri out of Italy and at least in part over to England to more closely align with the main team. Because fundamentally, what do AlphaTauri bring Red Bull at the moment? Okay, branding for a clothing company, and we'll get into that in a second. But outside of that, there's not that much it brings, apart from the development of younger drivers. And to be fair, Max Verstappen today might well be a Mercedes driver if Toro Rosso didn't exist, because Helmut Marko could give him a Formula 1 seat and Toto Wolff could not. There will be new sponsors and a new name as well. So an entire overhaul here of this team to try and reinvigorate it to a certain extent. And you can understand why. These are the current constructors' standings. Red Bull are dominating everyone, 321 points. AlphaTauri have 2 points. They're actually now officially last in the standings because Alex Albon got that brilliant P7 in Canada, which puts AlphaTauri down to 10th. Nick de Vries, no points. Tsunoda's got a couple of points, doing a great job in what is pretty much the weakest car. Even Haas have some more points than them, despite the fact that their car cooks the tyres in the race. Now, this is the thing with Haas. Their car is as close to the Ferrari as they can make it. They buy everything they can from the Ferrari that's allowed within the regulations. The gearbox, the rear suspension, everything they can possibly get from Ferrari they get, and they build the rest of their car themselves. AlphaTauri, for some reason, haven't done for Red Bull. They've made a lot of their own design decisions, and Red Bull are now like, what are you guys doing? We have the best car concept. We're not allowing you to do that anymore. You will be buying everything from us that we can possibly sell to you in an attempt to hopefully make that team a little bit better, right? So there's a few benefits that Red Bull have had. For example, when they switched to Honda power, I'm pretty sure they put it into the AlphaTauri first, just to make sure that it was going to be looking good for them before they then transferred it over to the Red Bull team. And also in terms of drivers, and there has been times where, like, let's say Verstappen, I think it was Qatar 2021, Verstappen was making his way through the field, and Gasly in the AlphaTauri, you know, maybe could have fought, but decided not to, because there's effectively 2 teams on the grid and 4 drivers under the same operation. You can say the same thing with, you know, Williams and Mercedes. There's a relationship there to some extent, but it's not quite how Red Bull and AlphaTauri have it going on. But fundamentally, they've been in drastically different races for the last couple of years. Now, if you guys weren't aware, AlphaTauri is a clothing brand, and it seems like the reason why they renamed the Formula 1 team was to promote this AlphaTauri clothing brand. A bit of a weird one. It's personally not for me. I mean, this is one of their stores, I think, in London. I'm pretty sure that they opened relatively recently. There's not that many of them around, and here were some jackets just sitting underneath some bodywork of a Formula 1 car. So anyway, that's what AlphaTauri are up to, and in fairness, they've had their time, you could argue, right? They've had their time on the car, in the spotlight, making some noise. People know about AlphaTauri, they've heard of it, even if they don't know that it's actually just meant to be a clothing company. And at some point, it was inevitable that Red Bull were going to decide, you know what, you know, it's kind of run its course in a sense. It's got the benefits for the marketing that it's going to get really from this, so it's time to move on. They've now made that decision, and even they got offered recently, apparently, $1 billion to buy AlphaTauri by another team. Someone else wanted to buy it, change it around, and they're making big changes, right? Lauren Mekis is coming over there from Ferrari to be their team principal next year. They're getting rid of Franz Tost. They're moving it in a new direction, and they didn't want to sell it for the $1 billion. It's probably worth something around that. They prefer to keep it because they believe they can do more with it going forward. So will we see a return to Toro Rosso? These are some of the cars from, let's say, 2011 with this one, the Toro Rosso cars over the years. You guys might recognize the more maybe iconic livery from 2017, which is pretty distinct. And then in 2020, it became Scuderia AlphaTauri, as you guys can see at the bottom here. 2020, 21, 22, now 23, and that is going to be no longer. So what is it going to change change its name to? Is it going to go back to being Toro Rosso as it was back in the day when they were, as I say, pretty competitive in the early days? Okay, not competitive, but, they at least could potentially win a race or get a podium on their day, as Vettel did achieve. And I think many people have fond memories of Toro Rosso as just a branding name in the sport. AlphaTauri has never felt quite the same way. So will they go back to Toro Rosso? Very possible. There have been some suggestions for team names in the replies. Just go back to Toro Rosso, do something else, like the Red Cow or something, right? I think even, was it Tomo mentioned an idea like that? So, Toro Rosso could be an interesting idea. There's even Minardi, right? Because I think it was Minardi before it was Toro Rosso, so that would be pretty interesting to go back to. I saw another one, someone said Super Aguri, which is also pretty fun, so I don't know what they're going to decide to do. The other point, though, along these lines is what are they going to do with the drivers? Because if you're going to do this entire renovation of the team, bring it back to England, completely change the branding and the sponsors and a lot of people that are actually there working on the team, you might as well reinvigorate the driver department as well. And maybe with this brand new organisation they're going to develop, or at least brand new name, let's just say, they might want to have some big branding attached to that. Now, yes, Yuki Tsunoda's having a great season, and he probably will stay in that seat next season, unless he gets brought up to the Red Bull if Sergio Perez gets binned off. But, he says the performance is good, Helmut Marko. And then another dagger, as always, for Nick de Vries. We're not satisfied with Nick de Vries. We will look into that. So, de Vries is gone. There's no doubt about it. My question is, could a man like Daniel Ricciardo, because we've heard the rumours that Ricciardo is interested and Red Bull are interested in potentially putting him in the AlphaTauri seat next season. It's not going to be called AlphaTauri. Let's say it's Toro Rosso and that makes a return, and the car might be more competitive if they buy a lot of the Red Bull parts. You'd expect it to be. And with the launch of potentially a brand new brand, or at least the return of an old brand, with new sponsors, new energy in the team, surely one of the perfect guys to put in that seat would be a man like Daniel Ricciardo, with all the presence that he has and with all the personality and the eyeballs that he would bring to the team. So I think if they are going down this route, which it seems like they are, Ricciardo actually makes even more sense. Now, I'm not saying that's the best decision, but still, it at least is an option that might make sense. Helmut Marko also gave his thoughts on the Austrian Grand Prix coming up this weekend. He actually says that Ferrari could be a threat, and they were last year. They won the race last year. Helmut Marko says in Montreal, Ferrari had the fastest car, which is, not necessarily true, but whatever. They were pretty quick compared to where they usually are. The Red Bull ring suits them. If Leclerc starts from the first or second row, it won't be easy for Max. I find it funny how he just completely disregards Checo entirely, but he's like, yeah, it won't be easy for Max to win this one if Leclerc is near enough to the front. Now, plenty of teams bringing upgrades here as well. McLaren, this is pretty big for them. They're bringing 3 upgrades, I think, over the next 3 races. 50% of their package is going to arrive this weekend. I think that's what they said, with another 25% following at each of the next couple of races. So this is a big step for them. I think they even said that it's effectively a B-spec car. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the McLaren upgrades bring. Ferrari, a few changes to their floor as well. So we'll see if that brings them any more performance this weekend. Also Aston Martin, we know they've made a lot of progress on trying to develop the strength of their DRS relative to what Red Bull are doing. And that is certainly what they're still focused on here, tied to helping the efficiency under the DRS. Now, what Alonso has mentioned though is that this weekend's is probably not the ideal time to see, because they believe there's more potential in the upgrades they brought to Canada than you saw at the track in Canada. But for Austria, there is one practice session on Friday, then you've got to set your car up, do the sprint, on Saturday, right, and then do the race itself on Sunday. So it's probably not the ideal circumstance. And as Alonso says, I think the sprint weekend will not be ideal for us. We still need more time, maybe more free practice with our new upgraded car. We still need to understand and optimize the package a bit. In Austria with the sprints, we'll only have 1 hour to do that. The circuit will be good. Austria might have more pace, but it's not ideal, especially when looking at the weather forecast for this weekend, which is not necessarily aligned with free, clean running that the teams would like. But quite a lot of teams have brought upgrades either recently or they're going to bring them in Silverstone, because if they bring them here, they realise that it's going to be difficult to unlock much, as it was the case, to be honest, when Mercedes arrived in Monaco. Now, Toto Wolff actually says, though, that we'll aim to build on the momentum we have generated over the past few races and continue our positive trajectory with the car. It's a venue where the W14 should perform better than in Canada, but we won't take anything for granted. So we'll see how well the Mercedes does. As I mentioned a couple of times now, the W13 was surprisingly good there last year on Friday, and eventually they were both in the wall, but it was at least on pace a little bit. I do wonder though what's going to happen with the rain, because this weekend the forecasters look like this for a few days at this point, and I checked it myself on Google. well, okay, maybe not the most reliable, but it's good enough. And this is basically what it says, that on Friday, there's going to be some rain at some point or another. Saturday could be quite persistent and heavy rain on the sprint day. And then Sunday will again be potentially scattered showers pretty much around the time the race is going to take place. So if all days are rain affected to a certain extent, and we said it with Canada before that even if it wasn't going to rain during the race, rain was certainly going to affect the weekend to some degree, as of course it did. So, you know, this makes the race hopefully more entertaining and more interesting, because rain in Austria can always make things pretty spicy, but it also means that in terms of bringing upgrades to the car, makes things arguably even more challenging to get the results that they would like. And just to close out here, the latest update before the Austrian Grand Prix on the full teammate head-to-heads. Verstappen, Perez is 6-2 in both categories. Alonso to Stroll is 7-1. I believe that it's Spain the only exception there. Hamilton 6-2 on Russell in the race, but 4-4 in quali. Sainz actually has the edge on Leclerc here technically. Ocon, Gasly very close. Norris, Piastri is pretty impressive actually, I think, from Piastri to be honest so far. Hulkenberg's had the measure of Magnussen. Bottas has just about had the measure of Zhou. Tsunoda, De Vries isn't even close. And same story with Albon, Sargent. So very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.